Hello, my name's Andy, I'm the Ginger Gamer. Welcome to episode 12. In my last preview video, I finished on the Brachiosaurus enclosure, which if you watch that episode, you'll know it had this slightly hokey, probably quite dangerous, definitely not insurable walkway through the enclosure. And I'm assuming the Brachiosaurus are lovely, placid creatures who don't mind being encaged for our enjoyment and wouldn't take it out on any people that was walking across there. Right, I realise I've got the game paused. I'll press play. Right, so after that, I then started work on some more enclosures. The first thing I did was, this was all kind of quite flat. I'll put a picture up now to show what this was like. So I've raised it up and added some trees and made it look all nice and natural as you walk down there, and then we move on to the next enclosure and you go up these stairs up here through the trees. I will apologise, and hopefully I'll probably apologise again because, you know, I'm English, but my control of the camera when I'm doing quick little views shots like this is pretty awful, so I do apologise if it's all a bit janky. But anyway, you come up here and then you come up to what is the T-Rex enclosure, and is the biggest enclosure so far in the game, and it's broadly speaking split into three parts. There you can see one of the Rexes. It's this lake area here, which is the first bit you come to as one of the guests. Then there's a sort of sleeping, bedding, nesting area, and then the final area is where they eat. Now, I like the look of this. I think it's quite clever in that you come here and T-Rexes will be... Let me just grab that T-Rex and make him play the game. And they'll immediately turn away when you place them and try and get them to do what you want them to do. It looks pretty unsafe, but actually the water here, as you can see from this edge here, drops off quite deep. So, well done T-Rex, thank you. So if you get one of the T-Rexes and put them in the water, there's no way they can get close to there. So it's relatively safe, apart from the corners there, which I think any Rex worth its salt could get out of. And the corner there, which I may adapt to make it look a little safer. Anyway, the guests follow this path and come round to here. Now, this is basically where, the T-Rexes will wander as well. So you'll follow the T-Rexes as they navigate the enclosure, and the guests follow this path, T-Rex follow that path, until we get to here and they split and the Rexes go off that way and the guests go up these stairs. Now, I took into account some of the feedback on the Brachiosaurus treetop walkway, and I've made one for the T-Rexes, but I've made it far more out of concrete and metal, and hopefully it would be a lot more robust and withstand the T-Rexes getting angry, though of course nothing would. So this follows around here until you come to this area, and the Rexes would come through that way, and there's a nice gap in the walkway there. And this is their nesting bedding area. Now, in the latest devlog, they did say that the dinosaurs are going to start seeking out this bedding as a place for them to lie down. So this will work better, hopefully, after the next update or the update after that. That would be really good if that works. Now, this is the end of the raised treetop walkway, and you walk back down there, and then you'll come to a path in front of the enclosure there, and the Rexes walk round here. As you can see, not sleeping by the bedding at all. But anyway, and that's the view the guests will have of the Rexes chomping away and eating, very happy in their enclosure that they could probably escape from at any moment. But I think it looks good, so that's good. I've been experimenting in making like really large tree trunks. I don't know why. Partly because there's that scene in Jurassic Park where the characters hide behind a tree trunk as the T-Rex is killing other dinosaurs. And I think that was in my mind. I don't think it really works, but that was my conceit for that anyway. So as you can see, they sleep in amongst the trees here, rather than bother to go to their bedding area. Hopefully that will change. I think I've got 4 T-Rexes in here. Again, I'm assuming with a large enough area they won't get too aggressive with each other. But yeah, it's the largest enclosure in the game. It's all of that, and yeah, I think it's quite good. I think it would be a kind of signature enclosure, your T-Rex enclosure, if this was a real park. Right, from that, then I did mean to put in, there's a couple of spaces where I meant to put in some guest facilities. There's one over here that I haven't done yet, and I was going to put one here, but what I think I might do with this space, because I've built a restaurant over here, is either put some toilets and kind of make it a little bit woody, or not. But anyway, so you come around there, you come off the path, and you can either go and view this next exhibit over here, or you can come up these steps, and then there's a nice raised restaurant over some muddy water. There's also a little viewing platform there. Now, the reason I put that there is because the fences didn't quite meet, and just blocked it off. Very hokey. Anyway, this enclosure is for Iguanodons, one of my favourite dinosaurs. Now, I imagined them living in quite marshy areas, and I don't know why. I think there is a degree of truth in that, but I don't know why I decided that they did. But once I did decide, then there was the challenge of making a marshy, muddy, puddly area in the game, and actually the way I thought you'd make it is actually the way it worked out. So basically, this whole area here, let me zoom out, this whole area here is actually a continuation of the water here, and about 0.5 meters deep. And then all you do is obviously add a mud texture to the ground, and then you just start raising the ground up in patches at lots of different heights, but very sort of subtly, and then eventually you do get a nice muddy patchy area. I found the balance of getting it not too watery and then not too dry was a little bit difficult, but it's just a case of playing around with it until you're happy, really. And the view kind of varies depending. You can be right up here and it can look quite dry, and then you get down lower and you see there's a nice big puddle. But yeah, I was pretty pleased with that, really. And I mean, they seem pretty happy in that enclosure. And at the back it's got a little bit more of a planted area and then a bedding area. They tend to sleep over here. Again, as I said before, I hope that changes. Now, if you follow down here, you can see that there's more of a muddy, puddly area there, and there's 2 slightly raised walkways. The one on the right takes you past the Iguanodons again, and the one on the left takes you to the next enclosure, which is kind of an enclosure of 2 halves. It's got a continuation of the muddy, puddly area here, and then this is slightly higher ground, and it's more grassy, and it's got more ground plants. And this is home for another carnivore, which is the Acrocanthosaurus. Fingers crossed I've pronounced that right. And I wanted to make it look like a sort of woody area, but whilst also continuing the kind of muddy, swampy theme. And this does work with these dinosaurs. This is quite appropriate for these dinosaurs. And it's probably one of the simpler enclosures I've got, really. There's no real change of viewing height for the guests. You really only view it from the front here. But yeah, I quite like it. It's quite simple, but I like it. And having a nice roll around in the mud. I don't know if that's what they're really doing. I don't think it's that complex a behaviour. I imagine they're doing that as modern day animals do, to get rid of insects or to cool down or whatever, but we'll leave it at that. Anyway, if you move on from this enclosure, you come to this area, which is another really large seated area, and I'm really working on the premise. This is hard work to walk around this park. There's a lot of steps, there's a lot of distance to travel, so I've put a really large seated area at the front of this exhibit, and I probably need to add another cafe. I don't know if I'll actually leave that there, but I think to feed all the guests that come here. Now, in this enclosure, and this enclosure is a slight departure from a lot of my enclosures in that the actual environment itself is multi-layered as it's going up this kind of hillside. And in it, we have, exit out of that group, we have the Paraceratherium. Again, hopefully I've got that right. And it's got lots of different areas to it. It's got a bedding area over here. It's got this stream is continuing. Now, I'll mention this here. Sometimes in the game, it's hard to get the dinosaurs, or at least they're very inconsistent in what depth of water they'll walk through, what kind of bridges they'll walk over. And I'll talk about that a little bit more when I get to the Smilodon exhibit. You've got Smilodons? Yes, we have Smilodons. And talk about that a little bit more. Again, when their movement AI and stuff changes and improves over time, that may be less of a problem. But I love paras. I think paras are amazing creatures, and I was glad to give them what I think is quite a nice exhibit. Right, as it turns out to guests, this kind of rest stop is probably a good thing, because you've got quite a big client coming here. There's one of the paras being nice and cute. Anyway, you can walk up these steps, and this goes, excuse me, all the way up the hillside to the top here. But there's two little points here where you can come out into the enclosure a little bit, and you'll be able to see them feeding, but you'll be quite safe, as I'll hopefully, if I learn how to control things, prove. If that's feeding there, you're pretty safe from them, really. And again, because I like paras and I like Brachiosaurus, I imagine they're happy creatures who don't mind being in captivity and won't be trying to reach up to you there or bang into this. But yeah, so in terms of the enclosure, again, as I said, the sleeping area there, it winds up the hill a little bit here. Now, getting slopes that the dinosaurs will walk up and walk down, again, is a bit of a nightmare. There's kind of an optimum gradient that they like, and trying to work that in to the enclosure is quite difficult, but I just about managed it. And there's also another area where they feed up here, which is a little quieter area. But anyway, the guests come up here, and they wander down the path, and then you come to this really narrow path which takes you between two enclosures. On the right there's the paras, and on the left there's the Smilodon enclosure. And there's two parts to the Smilodon enclosure, really. There's this part, which is the lake and the feeding area, and this part, which is a rockier area, but also has a bedding, sleeping area there. They can climb up onto this bit, but they can't get up this bit. I think in real life a decent cat might be able to, but we're pretending they can't. Yeah, so there's two areas, and it's split by this walkway, except it's not really split, because if you see, there's a gap for them to come round. So it is just one enclosure in two halves with this walkway in the middle. But so as far as guests go, they follow this path round, and they get down to here, and I'll try and do this, and there's some steps that go under the ground. I have to tie this up a bit. Every time I go through, there's more plants spoiling the view. And then they come onto this walkway. And they can follow this walkway down. It's quite narrow. I ummed and ahed about how narrow to make it, but decided on what it is. And then there's steps down and up again to get out of it at the other end. Again, I also ummed and ahed about putting a roof on top. I think in reality, again, it might need a roof. But we'll leave it at that. I think if I'm saying that this fence is enough to keep them in the enclosure, then this fence would be enough to keep them out of this area. So I'll leave it. Now, I really like this little lake that I've made here. Even though I do say so myself, I think it's really good. I think water can look really, really nice in Prehistoric Kingdom. I think they've done a fabulous job on water, especially on a nice sunny day. Again, the point I made earlier about bridges. Now, I really, really like them to walk across this log here. And if they would, I would take away this bridge here. But what I would also say is this bridge doesn't always work either. Sometimes I've just sort of placed that in as a placeholder. They don't always use that. So it's not really perfect. And again, I'm kind of waiting for the next update to see if things improve a little bit in that regard before deciding what I'm actually going to do finally with this. So that's the Smilodon enclosure, and that's the last enclosure that I've made so far. So what I'll talk about briefly now is what I'm going to do next. So the guest path takes you round here, and there's going to be a big exhibit in this space here. Not all the way around there, but certainly to there. Although it's tempting to go to where this river is, but probably just around there. And then, but actually what I'm going to work on next, sorry, I have to go all the way down here, and you'll see the start of it, is here. I'm going to start making the entrance area and where the guests arrive. So the conceit for it is going to be that they come down by a river, disembark there. There's going to be a building here, which is where they get their tickets and properly enter the park, and where you put the visitor entrance bit in. The module inside, I'm going to obviously have a prefab building, and then guests will come out of here, and then this area here, there's going to be some lodges, probably 4 lodges, but they're going to be sort of copy paste, pretty much the same. And then across this whole area here, blocking the view really of the first exhibit, is going to be the main entrance to the park, and I might put some shops and things like that around here. And then there's going to be a pathway, and guests will start there. And as you know, if you've seen previous videos, I don't know what that trike is doing. This is the Triceratops, is your first enclosure. But now the reason I'm doing that, even though I haven't finished the park, I was going to leave the visitor's entrance till last. The reason I'm going to do that next is really to test all the walkways, and I'm going to open up the park and then see if people actually, you know, and will guests use this walkway here? Will it all work? So my plan is I'm going to open the park, see visitors coming out, then I'm going to go all the way up here to the Smilodon enclosure, and then position myself here, and then wait to see if any visitors actually get round to it. I don't know if they will. One of the other points I've made in previous videos is I've made basically a blank canvas of a huge hillside with a couple of rivers, which is why I've called this the West River and this the East River. But there's no way I'm going to spend time filling all this in. I mean, I must have spent 150 hours, I think, now so far in this park. I can't fill all this in. So what I'm going to do is actually build some exhibits and work my way back round here to then bring visitors back on a loop back to where they enter and exit the park. So I'm going to do one exhibit there, then work up there, round this side, round there, down there, and then back to the visitors. So I reckon that'll be 6, maybe 7 enclosures. Mammoths and the woolly rhinos, I know that's not their proper name, will be included. They'll either be in a shared exhibit or I'm going to do a separate one. I think they're often paired together, so I might buck that trend and continue with the trend I've got, which is single species exhibits. There's a couple of other dinos that I'd like to use, and I kind of would really like to do another T-Rex enclosure, maybe a smaller one, but we'll see. Anyway, that's the park as it is. I think it's going quite nicely, working its way up that hillside. What I will do with the rest of it when I finish is I will just forest it and add loads of trees to whatever bits I don't use, and it will place the park directly in the forest hillside that I'm kind of basing it all on. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed that. Thank you very much if you stuck through to the end of the video. Please like and subscribe. It'll really help me out if you do. And I will hopefully in another 2 or 3 enclosures time build out another preview video. I will at the very end when the whole park is finished, especially if the guests work, bring out a proper tour video which will be filmed better, if that makes sense. There'll be no janky movement like I do. There'll be lots of good camera shots of each enclosure from the dino's perspective and the guest perspective, and it'll be a better quality and probably easier viewing than these preview videos. Anyway, any questions, please add them in the comment section below. Any comments at all you have, please add them. Thank you very much if you already have. As I said, please like and subscribe. And that's all. That's everything. I will see you next time.